Snow has a strange way of hiding things. It covers roads, forests, houses, even footprints. And on the coldest nights, when the wind starts screaming outside your window, the world feels empty, silent, forgotten. But some people say winter doesn't just hide the living, it hides things that were never meant to be found. Tonight, I'm going to tell you several true-style winter horror stories. Stories about lonely cabins, frozen roads, strange footsteps in the snow, and people who realized too late that they were not alone. So lock your doors, turn off the lights, and let the cold in. The footsteps outside. 3 years ago, I moved into a small house near the mountains in Colorado. It wasn't huge, but it was cheap, quiet, and far away from people. That was exactly what I wanted after my divorce. The first winter there was brutal. Every night, snow piled higher against the windows, and the trees outside looked like giant black figures standing in the dark. One night around 1 a.m., I woke up because of a strange crunching sound outside my bedroom window. Crunch, crunch, crunch. At first, I thought it was an animal, but then I realized the sound had rhythm, like footsteps, slow footsteps, walking around the house. I stayed completely still in bed, listening carefully. The footsteps stopped directly outside my window. Then silence. I waited for nearly a minute before finally forcing myself to look through the curtains. Nothing, just snow. The moonlight reflected off the frozen ground so brightly it almost hurt my eyes. I told myself I was imagining things and tried going back to sleep. Then I heard it again. Crunch, crunch, except this time, the footsteps were on the porch. My heart immediately started racing. Nobody should have been out there at that hour. My nearest neighbor lived almost 2 miles away. I grabbed my phone and quietly checked the security camera app connected to the front porch. The screen loaded, and I nearly dropped the phone. There was someone standing outside my front door. A tall figure wearing dark winter clothes, completely motionless. The person wasn't knocking, wasn't moving, just standing there. I stared at the screen for almost 30 seconds before building enough courage to call out, "Who's there?" No response. The figure remained still. Then suddenly, the camera glitched. Static flashed across the screen. When the image returned, the figure was gone. I checked every camera angle. Nothing. The porch was empty. The backyard was empty. No footprints. No movement. Nothing. I barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, I opened the front door carefully. Fresh snow covered everything, completely untouched. No footprints leading to the porch. No footprints leaving it. Just smooth white snow. But near the edge of the porch, someone had written 3 words with their finger. "Let me in." I moved out 2 weeks later. But sometimes during winter nights, I still wake up hearing footsteps outside my apartment window. Slow, crunching, walking through snow that isn't there. The last gas station. Back in 2018, my cousin Eric worked as a night cashier at a remote gas station in northern Canada. The station sat beside a long highway surrounded by endless forest. During winter, temperatures dropped so low that cars sometimes froze completely. One night during a blizzard, Eric was alone at work. The snowstorm outside was so thick he could barely see beyond the gas pumps. Around 2:30 a.m., an old pickup truck slowly pulled into the station. Eric noticed something strange immediately. The truck's headlights were off. The driver stepped out wearing a heavy coat and walked inside. But the man looked wrong somehow. His skin was pale, not normal pale, gray pale, like frozen skin. The man walked to the counter and asked quietly, "You open all night?" Eric nodded nervously. The customer stared at him for several seconds without blinking. Then he smiled. "I got stranded nearby," he said. "Mind if I warm up for a while?" Eric said sure. The man sat near the coffee machine silently for almost an hour. Didn't drink anything, didn't move, just stared out the window into the storm. Finally, Eric asked where his car broke down. The man slowly looked back at him. "My car?" He smiled wider. "I died out there 20 years ago." Eric laughed nervously, assuming it was some weird joke. But the customer didn't laugh. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he said something Eric never forgot. "Don't look outside at 3:33. Then he walked back into the blizzard. Exactly at 3:33 a.m., the power went out. The entire station became dark. Eric grabbed his flashlight immediately. That's when he remembered what the man said, "Don't look outside." But curiosity won. Eric aimed the flashlight toward the windows and froze. Dozens of people were standing outside in the snow. perfectly still, all facing the gas station. Men, women, children. None of them moved. None of them blinked. Their faces looked pale and frozen. Eric locked himself inside the storage room until morning. When police arrived, there were no footprints anywhere around the building. But later that week, an older police officer told Eric something terrifying. 20 years earlier, during a massive blizzard, a bus had crashed near that exact highway. Everyone inside froze to death. My friend Daniel rented a cabin in Norway for a solo winter vacation. The place was deep in the mountains with no nearby neighbors. No internet, no phone signal, just snow and silence. At first he loved it. The cabin looked beautiful. Wooden walls, fireplace, frozen lake nearby. But on the third night, something changed. Daniel woke up around midnight hearing knocking. 3 slow knocks. On the cabin door. He checked the window. Nobody there. He opened the door carefully. Only snow and darkness. Then he noticed footprints. Bare human footprints in the snow. They started from the forest and stopped directly at the cabin door. There were no footprints leading away. Daniel immediately locked the door. That night he barely slept. The next evening the knocking returned. 3 knocks again, this time louder. He looked outside immediately. Still nobody, but now the footprints circled the cabin, over and over, like someone had been walking around the house for hours. Daniel called the cabin owner using the emergency satellite phone. When he explained everything, the owner became quiet. Then he asked, "Did you open the door the first night?" Daniel said yes. The owner cursed under his breath. Then he said something horrifying. "Leave the cabin immediately." Daniel packed his things and rushed outside toward his car. But as he reached the driveway, he noticed fresh footprints behind the cabin. Hundreds of them, all barefoot, standing in the snow between the trees, facing the cabin, facing him. And according to Daniel, some of those footprints were far too large to belong to a human. In 2019, a truck driver shared a story online that still terrifies me. He was driving through a remote highway in Alaska during winter. The road was empty for miles. Snowstorm. No radio signal. No other cars. Around midnight, he spotted a woman standing beside the road wearing a thin white dress. No coat, no shoes, just standing there in the snow. He stopped immediately because he thought she needed help. The woman slowly walked toward the truck, but something felt wrong. She wasn't shivering. Her feet weren't bleeding, despite standing barefoot on ice, and her face looked emotionless. The truck driver opened the passenger door carefully. "Are you okay?" The woman nodded slowly. Then she asked, "Can you take me home?" Her voice sounded strangely calm, almost empty. The driver agreed. As they drove, he tried making conversation, but she barely answered. After 20 minutes, she pointed toward a narrow forest road. "Turn there." The driver hesitated. There was nothing visible except trees and snow, but he turned anyway. After several minutes, they reached a completely abandoned cabin. No lights, no tracks, nothing. The woman smiled slightly. "This is home." Then she opened the truck door and stepped outside. The driver watched her walk toward the cabin, but halfway there, she disappeared into the snowstorm, completely vanished. The driver panicked and immediately reversed the truck back toward the highway. The next morning, he reported the incident at a nearby town. An older local man went pale after hearing the story. Then he showed the driver an old newspaper clipping. A woman matching that exact description had frozen to death near that road in 1987 after her car broke down during a storm. When I was younger, my uncle owned a small fishing cabin near a frozen lake in Finland. One winter, he invited me and my older brother there for the weekend. Everything seemed normal at first, until the second night. We were sitting near the fireplace when we heard a loud cracking sound outside. My uncle looked nervous immediately. He grabbed a flashlight and went outside alone. A few minutes later, he returned pale. Very pale. "What happened?" my brother asked. My uncle hesitated before answering. "There's someone under the ice." I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He explained that near the center of the frozen lake, he saw what looked like a human figure trapped beneath the ice, motionless, staring upward. My brother didn't believe him and ran outside with the flashlight. I followed, and I wish I hadn't. Far across the frozen lake, under the thick ice, we saw it, a dark human-shaped figure beneath the surface. It looked frozen in place, the face tilted upward toward us. Even from far away, I could tell the eyes were open. Then suddenly, the figure moved. Its arms slowly lifted beneath the ice, pointing toward us. My uncle immediately dragged us back inside. We locked every door and window. Around 3 a.m., we heard something scratching beneath the cabin floor. Slow scratching, like fingernails against wood. Then came knocking from underneath us. Not at the door, not at the windows. From beneath the cabin itself. None of us slept until sunrise. The next morning, my uncle checked the lake again. There was nothing beneath the ice. But near the cabin, wet footprints led from the lake to the front porch. Winter is quiet. That's what makes it terrifying. The snow absorbs sound. The road's empty. The nights become longer. And sometimes, when the world becomes silent enough, you start hearing things that were always there. Footsteps outside your house, knocking in the dark, voices hidden beneath the wind. So tonight, before you go to sleep, take one last look outside your window. And if you see footprints in the snow, make sure they don't stop at your door.